Good evening, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And jazakallah so much for staying with us here on Hilaal Live. I'd like to thank my colleague Luqman Shadrack for taking you through that first 1 hour. Now, South Africans woke up to the passing of former Minister in the Presidency and anti-apartheid activist Essop Pahad, who died at the age of 84. Now, Pahad has been given a state funeral after it was announced by the government. Now, Pahad was appointed Minister in the Presidency when former President Thabo Mbeki succeeded Nelson Mandela in 1999. Before that, he served as a parliamentary councillor to Mbeki, who was then the Deputy President. Joining us now to reflect on his life is ANC veteran Snuki Zikalala. Mr. Zikalala, good evening and thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live.
Good evening and salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. No, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Zikalala, when we talk of Essop Pahad, we really do talk of somebody who was as a struggle stalwart as he would be.
Yeah, I think Essop was a struggle stalwart who fought against apartheid, the atrocious system of apartheid, and of course make sure that when democracy was ushered in the country, he was given the role of ensuring that there is transformation of especially of state institutions, especially media and broadcasting. And I think he played a very important role in our struggle. During the struggle against apartheid, I worked with him in 1977, 78, when he used to come to Botswana to come and see his family. And so I was based in Botswana, and because he was not allowed to enter the country, and so we also had left the country. I left the country in 1974, but I was one of those cadres responsible for ANC office in Botswana. And so we assisted in getting in touch with the family, and of course, we stayed in the same house with him and slept on the same bed with him. And of course, we were involved in underground activities of the ANC from Botswana, of course, in terms of getting in touch with our people in the country and making sure that the struggle inside the country is intensified. And so he's a struggle stalwart. And of course, as I said earlier on, so when he was based in Czechoslovakia, working for a socialist publication, and I visited him in Czechoslovakia when I was with my wife, and we spent a week with him, and he was just coming from Angola, and he was really, really, really affected by malaria, and he was thin because he comes from Czechoslovakia going into Angola, and mosquitoes were in another child's brain. So he spent a week with him in Czechoslovakia and came back to Bulgaria. And so, of course, I think he was a stalwart, and of course, I worked with him when he was in the presidency, in charge of communications and in charge of GCIS. GCIS is Government Communication Information Services, and it did extremely well. GCIS was well structured, and it focused on transforming society, and it focused on ensuring that society is well informed about government's transformation program. And so I think it did exceptionally well.
Mr. Zikalala, you said you spent some time with him. Talk to us about what type of person he was as a struggle stalwart, because, you know, many of us who obviously, you know, grew up during the 90s would obviously see him as this, you know, parliamentarian or this cabinet minister. But talk to us about him as a struggle stalwart, as a fighter, as a cadre, as a comrade, and just how he really contributed towards the struggle against apartheid.
Well, as you know, I think he came from the South African Indian Congress, and so as you know that in South Africa with different political parties, those who fought against apartheid, the South African Indian Congress, the Colored People's Congress, and the South African Congress of Democrats. And so those were our allies who fought against apartheid. And being a member of the cabinet of the ANC, being a member of MK, he was instrumental in ensuring that there is what you call political education amongst our cadres who are going into the country. And also some of the cadres that he trained politically in London were infiltrated from London to come to South Africa. He gave them thorough, in-depth political education that basically were not fighting against white people in South Africa, but fighting against the racist regime. Those were in power, those were putting laws, apartheid laws that deprive majority of our people of their rights to live as human beings, the right to be educated, the right to employment, the right to organize workers. so that workers get what they deserve in terms of salaries and good working conditions. And I know very well that it was part and parcel of the SACTU, South African Congress of Trade Union Movement, which was the first federation of South Africans, black South Africans in the country, which of course united all workers in the country to fight against apartheid in the country and to fight against the exploitation of workers. Because as you know, in South Africa before 1994, the labor movement was banned in the country. Workers were not allowed to have trade union movements in the country. And so actually there were no labor laws at all. And so it was free for all for the racist regime, and of course for capitalists who benefited highly from the oppressive system.
Mr. Zikalala, he had a very special relationship with former President Thabo Mbeki. And you could see that because, I mean, they were together in London, and of course he served under him when Thabo Mbeki took over as the president of South Africa. There was a special relationship, wasn't there, between the two, and of course just how they were able to complement each other during their time in cabinet.
Yeah, they had a special relations. As you know, that when he was in London, they lived together in one flat, and when Mbeki was studying, and of course Essop was there, and they had a very, very special relation until in London, and of course when they came back into the country, they worked together, and that is why he was in the presidency, in charge of communications. And so there was a very special relationship that existed between the two. And I think it was a good one because, as you know, Essop Pahad, as the person, was implementing ANC resolutions and ensuring that society is well aware of what transformative agenda the ANC is. Mbeki was a theorist, actually the pragmatist as well, because what he meant and what he wanted to do, he made sure that it's done. And Essop made sure that the media itself is informed accurately about government objectives and government objectives and government implementation of the program of transformation in the country.
Mr. Zikalala, during your time at the SABC, and of course we had the late Essop Pahad as heading GCIS, there was of course that new era, and that new era of course in 1996 when the SABC was coming out from of course being the mouthpiece of the apartheid government into having a new dawn of a national broadcaster. How important was it that the experience heads like yourself and of course the late Essop Pahad were able to get together to make sure that this new era of the SABC had that smooth transition?
Yeah, well, as you know, that he was minister in the presidency and he was in charge of communications. What we are saying that in the African National Congress, we have a subcommittee, an NEC subcommittee on communications. And so that subcommittee communications, it's the one that they select board members of all media institutes which fall under GCIS. And so he made sure that the SABC, he brought credible, highly political leaders to be in charge of the SABC. They brought in Comrade Edi Funde and also Comrade Christine Kunda. And so those are the people that Comrade Essop Pahad made sure that they come in and be board members who are running the SABC. And of course, they gave us a mandate. The mandate was that the broadcasting itself, we must move away from the apartheid system broadcaster, which is a government mouthpiece, but to become a public broadcaster. As I'm saying, a public broadcaster is a public broadcaster that broadcasts news that informs, educates, and make sure that our people know what is happening in the country. And of course, he made sure that that all languages were equal in the country. As you know, before 1994, there was only one language that was above all other languages. That was Afrikaans. But Comrade Essop Pahad was that all languages, 11 languages that we had in the country, were broadcast at the SABC, and of course we also broadcast in Poo and Prayer, and that was the 12th language. And of course later on the sign language came on board. And so that was how to transform, to make sure that our people receive news in 11 languages. And the SABC itself, it had 19 radio stations, it had 4 television channels, and all that was carried through the public broadcaster. I think it did exceptionally well. And of course, it supported us as the SABC when we wanted to open bureaus in the continent. We opened bureaus in 5 countries in the continent, and also 3 in Europe and 2 in America. And of course, he supported our quest to have an international news agency that is run by the SABC. Basically, was saying that people in Africa and South Africa as a whole, they must not only look at news where there's poverty, there's mass killing, there's mass unemployment, there's no industrialization, and you wanted news that are positive about the continent, but not only positive in the sense of hiding the evils that are done by some of the African leaders, but saying that there is prosperity in the African continent. And of course, that's why we established SABC News International. And of course, we were broadcasting live in the continent itself and also getting news from making sure that people also understand what's happening in Europe and also in Latin America. And of course, I took a trip with him to China, where we opened an SABC office. Because as you know, the Chinese are very strict on protocol. They could not open the office for us as a public broadcaster without a senior member of cabinet, and he came with us. They agreed that we can open an office in China, which we did. Secondly, the Chinese agreed that we can put in our SABC News International channel on their satellite, so that the Chinese and all African countries can be able to watch that channel. And they agreed. And we're in the process of ensuring that channel is on a Chinese satellite. But unfortunately, when 2007 came, and all of us were removed, and that project was canned. And so that's one of the most unfortunate things that happened during that time. I think it was nothing else but counter-revolution, because people who came in there, they destroyed everything that we built, everything that we created, everything that we're passionate about.
Mr. Zikalala, I wish we had more time to reflect on the life of Mr. Essop Pahad, but I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
That's Snuki Zikalala, ANC veteran, and of course you heard his story. Well, Mr. Snuki Zikalala was, of course, head of the SABC. He worked very closely with the late Essop Pahad in trying to make sure that the smooth transition of the ANC happened, but also, of course, he knew him during the time of the 70s, when many of the politicians of South Africa and many of those fighting against apartheid were banned from the country. After the break, I speak to Fahraaz Patel. We're going to be talking about the new app that's taking over 10 million users so far. Are you one of them at home? It's Threads. It's the competitor to Twitter. Do stay tuned.